It is the iconic stag beetle mascot of Imagineer's first ever endeavor in the Survivor type genre with Medarot Survivor. It is KWG17, Bularis Mandi, with a kit of Power Sword, Block Rage, Jet Hammer, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Close Range, which boosts damage when attacking enemies close to the user, but boosts success if attacking enemies far away from them. Now, Bularis Mandi, for lack of a better term, was kind of leaked ahead of schedule, since at time of recording, the banner he was going to be released on was kind of teasing him ahead of time, so we already kind of had an idea of what his skills and numbers were, but this week officially he is dropping for players to be able to pull for and add to their libraries. And in a rather interesting turn of events, it was brought to my attention how Alpha Soma focused very heavily on raw power and balance with his overall numbers, which with Bularis Mandi, on the other hand, focuses more on speed and agility, which actually kind of ties true to the original intent and desire of the Stag Beetle family as a whole that defined them. Power Sword on the head part is a conventional melee type of attack that gets a times 1.5 damage bonus as long as the user's legs remain intact, and with a very high heat stat of just under 700, means that Bularis can most certainly fire this thing off without anything really slowing him down. And with a base power of nearly mid 1500s, adding an extra 50% on top of that means that's going to be hitting notably hard, especially given it also packs piercing potential. So if it ends up breaking something, it's most likely going to be breaking multiple things at once, or make its stance very, very abundantly clear. Clock Rage on the right arm is another conventional melee skill that gets its damage modifier from a very unique place. In contrast to a lot of other skills which will say check the opponent for any stats that are in play, any boosts or buffs or penalties, Clock Rage, on the other hand, instead punishes the foe for being faster than the user. In this sense, it adds 50% of the target's heat stat of the same respective part to base power when attacking. So essentially, this means that when Bularis Mandi chooses to go in and attack with Clock Rage, whatever his target's right arm heating is going to be, 50% of that is going to his base power. So if he's trying to fight someone that's trying to match his speed, that high speed is going to end up biting them in the butt, whereas if fighting someone who's relatively slower or more powerful, may or may not see a lot more of a bonus. So this one's going to be kind of the really weird trick with Bularis, given that you can't accurately track how consistent his damage is going to be relative to the target he's attacking and the kind of heat stat that they do bring to the table. But given that he does have heat and cool stats in the mid 700s in both specs, means that again he can fire this off relatively quickly without anything slowing him down. And a base power of 1189 means it's a nice starting point, so even if an opponent's heat stat isn't necessarily as high, it's still going to be a relatively good blow either way. Jet Hammer on the left arm is another conventional melee skill that is a full AoE type of attack, which means that upon attacking the target, it's going to damage all parts equally and spread the damage across them. So if there's only all 4 parts active, that's a quarter damage each, whereas only 3 or fewer, it's going to equalize across however many parts are active. However, Jet Hammer also has another unique condition where it gets a damage plus relative to how far away the target is from Bularis Mandi. So this means if you just barely catch somebody to the center line, that base power of 1731 is going to be relatively painful, but not quite as painful as you could make it. And instead, you're going to want to try to focus on giving the enemy a little bit of distance before you go after them, because that damage bonus is going to be exceptionally painful the farther away they are from Bularis when he goes to strike them. And a heat cool of the low 500s to low 600s isn't too terrible either, kind of in that nice little sweet spot that you want to sit in. So again, speed is most certainly not going to be too much of an issue when it comes to Bularis' overall performance. When it comes to his leg stats, a base mobility of 959 puts him in a relatively equal, if not slightly higher tier than where El Fasoma was sitting. So they're going to be roughly about the same in that respect, but Bularis is definitely going to be faster. However, in comparison to Elphas, he's also going to be notably easier to dodge. With a base evade at 1590, it's going to be a whole lot easier for him to dodge or graze in comparison to Elphas, so it's going to be a little harder to touch this guy if he's not on some no dodge penalty between any of his attacks or any kind of cooldown penalty. A melee resist of 1088 and a shoot resist of 817 are kind of going to be his pain points though, as this means that while he certainly does pack the speed between his mobility and his heat cool stats, it's going to be kind of painful for attacks that do end up actually landing on Bularis, because even his melee resist is just kind of decent at best at just over 1,000, just under 1,100, and a shoot resist at just over 800 is not terrible, but you do want to be careful with any incoming enemy shooters on the opposing side of the field. With armor, it's going to be roughly the same case as well, with a base HP for his head at 4079, arms at 3539 each, and legs at just shy of 3600. So compared to Alpha Soma, he's definitely lighter on the armor when it comes to reduction and at base HP across the board, but still some pretty solid numbers all the same, all with something that you can still pay attention to. And as another rather interesting contrast to Alpha Soma, Bularis Mandi is not triple heavy like we originally thought he was, and instead it's only packing one heavy part, which will only tie to the nod that he brings to the KWG family of focusing on speed and agility and lightweight more than he is packing on power and artillery. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Bularis Mandi a pretty well-rounded 8 out of 10 as well. While close range will make clocking his overall damage output kind of weird since he gets one perk at close range and another completely different one at long range, even taking that out of the equation, he still is a very synergetic model on all the way across the board, and he has 3 different kinds of skills that are all conventional and have at least one different kind of damage bonus that, if used correctly, can make his damage go up or down in either a good way or a bad way, and mostly in all the good ways that count. Power Sword gives you a 50% damage as long as your legs remain intact. Block Rage gives you 50% of the target's right arm heating, no matter how high or low it is, and Jet Hammer gives you damage plus the farther away the target is from you. So when you pile in close range on top of that, being able to use Power Sword or Clock Rage will most certainly benefit from that damage plus, and even close range will get it, and even Jet Hammer may get a little bit of a damage plus on that. But fighting someone from afar will boost his success stat instead, which makes Bularis more likely to land hits or crits successfully. As mixed parts, I do have to rate him equally for these same grounds at an 8 out of 10 as well, given that even though he is very synergetic and user-friendly, minus a couple of conditional bonuses, he is still very useful and very user-friendly as well. So being able to mix Power Sword, Clock Rage, or Jet Hammer basically anywhere is going to be a very, very nice bonus as well. And close range on something that is a non-collaboration bot, the most notable being Duke Knight from the second run of the Digimon collaboration, are all very good skills that you can put anywhere, especially given that both Clock Rage and Jet Hammer are both non-heavy, meaning that you can use them basically anywhere with no real drawback or penalty, and really not have to focus too heavily on team building.